the light, what is the light is like, for us, is not necessarily a replacement for UX, but more of a layer that comes on top of an already great user experience. And it's sort of like all of those small touches that you can add to your product through your brand personality that, altogether create a more enjoyable and engaging product. Scott Belsky, he's a chief strategy officer at Adobe, also founder of Behance. He said, people come to your product for what they expect, but they only rave about what they didn't expect. Now, I think the community, as I was saying, it's over-indexing on the UX process, but we are crafters. And so that is what I strongly believe makes us truly unique.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our podcast. Thank you, Rodolfo, for joining us.
Hi, Yuri. Thank you so much for having me.
It's awesome to have you here because the company you represent is a very nice story of success. One of the leaders in financial payment industries, but also what makes you different is that you work with a business software, but you love design and you're focusing on design. And I know that recently you had sharing about delight in applications.
Yeah, so we recently had like a very good event here in Calgary. So the title was Adding Delight to Elevate the Product Experience. This is like a topic that I'm very passionate about. Is delight, what is delight? Is like, for us, is not necessarily a replacement for UX, but more of a layer that comes on top of an already great user experience. Sort of like all of those small touches that you can add to your product through your brand personality that, altogether create a more enjoyable and engaging product. And the ultimate purpose is to not only have like a very usable and intuitive application, but also unique and memorable.
Do you need to start immediately when you found this type of company with this love in design and also focus on the delight of the users? Or this is something you can build in the companies that's already, for example, 10 years
ago? So, it's not something that necessarily you start right away as you kind of like start up a company and you're like, okay, I need to build a brand, I need to build a culture. Those like things sort of like develop organically as you scale. I think definitely thinking about like what is your brand personality when you start, like especially if you have a startup and you want to scale it, that's going to be important because it's going to be what people the perception that people have about your company is given by the brand that you continually shape, right? And so that is foundational, definitely. And then, more like sort of like along the way, you can explore ways how you can sort of bring more of that brand personality also into your product, which is something that, very few companies are thinking about that. I feel that most of the time there is a disconnect between, all the top of the funnel advertisements, social media. So more on the marketing side, everything looks very branded and intentional. But when you become a customer and you convert, you onboard and activate, you use the product, everything starts feeling a little bit flat and sterile because there's that disconnection, because product is focused on creating a useful and intuitive product while marketing is about pitching that product. So that disconnection, though, is a problem because for our audience, for our prospects externally, they only see one thing, one brand. And so to us, it's really important to ensure that there's brand continuity across all phases of the customer journey from marketing to product. And so as you scale and you sort of like have developed the brand, you can start thinking of how you can gradually bring more of it into our products to create more of that seamless experience.
I love what you're saying. So there is a very nice methodology, winning by design. And that's actually not about design, but about sales. But it's about evaluating impact that product or service is bringing. And the most important part of any sales, it's actual product that you have and the value you provide, because you want to have returning clients, you want to have people who work with you for years and who refer you other businesses. And this is made only inside of the product, not only like you close the deal and that's all. And does it mean that designers should be also more involved? The product designers should be also more involved in marketing, so they should also learn about branding, or they could say, "No, I'm product designer. I am focusing on tables design." that's
So yeah, that's a good point, because I always say that when we think about the light, we need to start thinking more as brand designers than product designers. In our case, it's a little bit easier because we do have different teams. We have a product design team and a brand design team. So there's a lot of collaboration between the two when it comes to bringing like more the light to our product. But if you just have one team, or you are like a solo designer, I mean, this is more like we are sort of like entering in a different topic. But to me, it's very important that all designers, whether they work in product or in brand, they have a solid foundation of visual design and design principles. I mean, brand is more taken for granted. Product design, so UI UX, less nowadays. I feel the community is like over-indexing on the UX process and the methodologies, which are absolutely critical. But there is a little bit of an overlook on the crafting, on the aesthetic, and I think that it should be more of a half and half rather than a like 75%, 25 kind of ratio. Because I always say, like, you might spend a month doing all the research you want, you get solid findings and insights to go design the solution. But then if you are not capable from a design perspective, from a crafting perspective, to come up with something that looks aesthetically pleasing, that that looks nice, that you understand composition, typography, colors matching, right? So you might compromise the work that you did on the research. Like all the time that you spent doing research will be compromised by a poor execution of the solution. And that, UX and UI are interconnected. If you come up with something that it's cluttered, that, doesn't follow like a good hierarchy in the way you sort of lay out all the composition, all the elements, that will impact usability, which eventually, will make the product less intuitive, more cluttered, more confusing. The thing is that now I think the community, as I was saying, it's over-indexing on the UX process, but we are crafters. And so that is what I strongly believe makes us truly unique. Is the ability, is the creative thinking, is the crafting process, how you sort of like turn opportunities, findings into like an aesthetically pleasing solution, right? That's when we are sort of alone doing that. We are unique versus all the UX process is mostly collaborative, which is like definitely absolutely important. But when it comes to user interviews, competitive analysis, we can do them as UX designers. Our PMs, product managers can do those, product marketers, or UX researchers. There's a lot of overlap when it comes to the UX process, but when it comes to executing the solution, we are the only ones doing that. So that's what, we need to go back there and ensure that we are capable to execute, at the high level, because that eventually is what users, will form an opinion about.
It's like in the saying that when you kill the dragon, you become the dragon. Designers were fighting for many years to have the place on the table, because previously, like 10 and more years ago, there was like developers ruling and designers were to draw some icons. And then designers become the people when you need somebody else to come and say, no, let's focus on craft, not only on development and business and research, but also just to make it beautiful and delightful.
Yeah, exactly. My personal theory is that because historical, and even now at some extent, we are considered prettifiers. So we are more like order takers. Okay, this is the solution, make it pretty. That is not what I'm saying, and that is bad. But because those were the dynamics, and still are in some cases, so we sort of like push for having more voice, not only when we execute design, but also when we sort of like research the best solution for it. And that eventually is what made us like get a seat at the table, like you said. But we went all the other, we went to the other complete edge of the spectrum, and now there is a need to maybe make it a little bit more balanced and consider also the prettifying aspect. I mean, that's a bad way to say it, but it's like the ability to craft high quality design solutions that will enhance the research, will augment everything that we found out, so that eventually we will provide a very kind of intuitive and delightful experience to our users.
But I also see that maybe like 10 years ago, we had a huge wave of startups. Everybody was moving super fast, like a jet ski. And now they became huge cruise liners that are moving very slowly, and changing something takes a lot of meetings, a lot of stakeholders, and weeks of approvals because there are so many moving parts.
Yeah.
So it also changes a lot of our work as designers. So you have to be a craftsman person, not you're a politician, not you're a negotiator, not you're, you have to know jobs of so many people to know their language, to convince them. What is your point on that?
Yeah. So every company wants to move fast, no matter if they are a small startup or if they are a massive corporation. The difference is that small startups must move fast because that's their secret weapon, right? But as you scale, you will inevitably slow down a little bit. You have to control how much process and bureaucracy you put in place to still allow for like a good agility in the way you create products, in the way you go to market, and that's when like agile methodologies come into place. That those are tools that are given to companies so that they can move fast regardless, right? So the whole agile and lean philosophies. So I feel like that even massive corporations or tech companies like Google, Apple, they all want to embody the startup kind of mentality, because being a startup means moving fast.
It's a questionable approach because, like, if you get to the larger products, like I don't know, Twitter now X, we've seen like for 10 years it almost didn't change at all, but they still had a lot of designers working there. So, but and I know experiences from some people who worked with people who had experience working in these large corporations, that they have a methodology and process to research every step. So you can't make a decision before you did a lot of like half a year research to make this little change, because the cost of mistake can be very high, and there are a lot of measures to limit the risks just to be safe, because one change can lead to millions of users drop out. If you're a startup, you have no users, so the risk is lower.
So my take there is there are two kinds of decisions: reversible and irreversible. So you want to make fast decisions when they are reversible. and you want to be very careful with the irreversible decisions. Anything that is reversible, you want to make it fast so you can fail fast, and then you can fix and kind of make the right decision and move on. Because the concept, like we have, it's called failing fast or failing forward, and it's the same. It's all connected. Like the rough MVP that you want to push live, you don't want to spend like 6 months to refine. If you will never know how it's gonna be, taken by, like, is it gonna be adopted? Is it, the way you are thinking about it reflects the way user thinks about it. Like, is it going to be appealing? There are so many unknowns. Even if you do a tons of research, you can't validate all assumptions. And so at that point, you just push it live, and then you start measuring performance and adoption, and you see where the pain points are, the flaws. You see how you can improve it, and it's all about incremental improvements. So it's all about failing fast, right? So that you can course correct and fix any issues that you might identify when you pushed it live.
Regarding your experience, you started your design team with a few designers, perhaps, yeah, and then now you have a few dozens of designers.
Oh yeah, we are like 10 at this point. We're definitely gonna scale more next year. And I was the solo designer when I started here. I was the only designer, so I was wearing many hats, from brand to product design, but also front end implementation. Everything that was needed.
Mm-hmm. So how your work as a design manager changes when you grow a team, and how does it influence your craftsmanship? Because you started as a designer that designed yourself, and then you start managing, and you need to balance how much decentralization and freedom you give to the team, and how much leadership you provide with some creative decisions. And like, what is your approach?
I guess the biggest challenge for new leaders is delegation. I mean, it's nothing new. Like most of the time you get promoted to leadership because you're good at your job. The thing is that when you become a leader, a manager, it is not about what you can do, but it is more about what you can get people, how you can unlock your team so that they can do great things, right? That is completely different from you being able to do great things. I mean, there's definitely like a coaching component that definitely helps, but you have to delegate. You cannot take over because you are thinking like, I can do it better and sooner, but that's not scalable. You will never scale beyond yourself if you don't actively delegate.
Did you take any courses? Or how did you learn to become a manager and leader in design?
We are taking courses, and also it's on us to sort of like continually keep ourselves up to date with modern leadership practices. But eventually, it is. I mean, this might sound obvious, but it's learned by doing, and not only learned by doing. Is like when you have to deal with those tough conversations. Maybe there's a culture fit problem, maybe there's a performance problem, and you have to sort of like work through it, and so having conversations with them, find the right balance between addressing the problem but also don't sort of kill their motivation. Those dynamics, which that's when things get a little bit complicated. Those situations are what eventually make you grow as a leader. Because if you have like an amazing team, then everything. I mean, and my team is amazing, but still like different people, different personalities, project dynamics, rushing sprints, and all of that. Sometimes you gotta have a little bit of like tough conversations. Sometimes you gotta let people go. Those things make you grow. If nothing ever happens and everything is always smooth, I mean, that would be amazing. but also it wouldn't make you grow as a leader.
That would be boring. So I see that designers don't like, from our experience, super short projects when somebody expects you to do something in a day or two without onboarding and understanding what you're actually doing. And they also hate projects when they work for years on one feature and nothing changes there. And if you're stuck on one feature for multiple years, you're stopping developing yourself. And that's not fun at all.
Absolutely.
But I see the trend that like previously it was super easy and everybody said, okay, that's when you are growing, you create pods of designers that are working within developers as a groups. If it's becoming bigger, you create neighborhoods like in Microsoft. So there's some groups of designers working on similar products. Then you have some functional departments that are focusing on research, UI, UX, branding, whatever, that helps them to coordinate. But at the end, for larger companies, it grows so large that the speed of innovation and the lots of communication and approval layers slow down the organization. And then I think that there are like quite a few companies who are doing this revolution, but one of the well-known examples is Brian Chesky in Airbnb, that he decided, okay, we need to have one level of approval, like what designers design, I'm the person who approves it, and that's all, and we move forward, because we can't afford like 3 approvals for design decision to change something in design system. But it also hurts morale, yeah, because now you know that there is one big boss who can come and say, no, this is bad work, do it like I said, and that's all. So how to find a balance when there is a boss who say, no, this we need to move faster, do it my way, and do it, you are just a pretty fire, or like saying, okay, take your time. If you say that you need 1 month for research, take 1 month. And especially knowing that the culture of your company, it's like about working smart and working hard. So it's not like be relaxed and spend 2 months on researching something when you need to.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So I think like we are everything but that hierarchical kind of company that has multiple layers of approval. Absolutely. We are super lean in that sense. So our product designers work with the product managers. So they are embedded in cross-functional teams. We work in sprints. Developers work in sprints. Designer work in sprints. It is very collaborative between designers and product managers, but also we bring in like dev leads for even to get their input. Again, like at that phase, everybody can contribute. But also in terms of like feasibility check. Okay, how feasible is this, right? So sometimes we run design sprints or simple brainstormings. Then the designers, they go and do a little bit of competitive analysis or customer journeys. So there are also activities that they do on their own. What I'm trying to sort of like advocate now is like for them to embrace AI tools to sort of fast track this research process and sort of get their most general assumptions validated. So we are not building I don't know, spaceships or I don't know, products like I don't know, teleport systems that you don't have absolutely any kind of information because it has never been done before. We most of the time we are solving problems that other companies, similar companies already solved. So what can we do to validate our assumptions or our hypothesis sooner rather than later by embracing AI as a means to do so that we can build confidence and move to the solution sooner rather than later, because that is all, again, it's speed, right? And so that's when, that's the smart component of our smart hard. The hard is like, your sprint is your commitment. So you want to make sure you get everything done. And if that, needs that you need to put like a couple of extra hours, like every once in a while, or on during the weekend, like, again, the sprint is your commitment. So we are sort of like embracing this sort of like mentality mindset that is more sort of like geared toward, having results faster rather than later. So we are more like sort of like result oriented, output oriented. And I think that, again, AI can be great. And we are adopting an AI strategy company wide, so that it's not only designers or product managers, but any person in the company from any department. What can you do to sort of like automate your process, fast track it by using these tools? And in terms of approvals, it's more of a discussion, like, between designers and PMs. We do peer reviews, like, so it's more like when we get that general consensus, this feels good, okay, because it's all about confidence, right? Okay, we have enough confidence. This is pretty good. Let's build it and push it live, and then we will capture merchant feedback, quantitative, qualitative, and we will refine it.
Yeah, that's based on culture, I guess, and limiting the bottlenecks, because like you need to understand the team are large enough to make decisions themselves and fast. I know that some companies try to find the ways to break that is kind of multi-level management, when like top management goes to the lowest level and approves everything there. Or I know that, like, I guess ABM did it. So they brought clients and stakeholders that have to approve some decisions together on the meeting, and they were approving it together. So there is not like stakeholders didn't listen for users because they be on the same meeting, and users love it. Okay, do it, or like let's listen to the users, so that the end users approve everything.
Yeah, no, totally. Because eventually, like you said, you want to empower your team. It's about you want them to take ownership. And for them to take ownership, they need to feel empowered that they can make decisions. You have to let them run the show, and you have to sort of kind of be there more as a facilitator, more as like providing those guardrails. Come up, definitely if you have a feedback to pass, you must. But you don't always want to be the guy who makes the final decision based on what you think, because that, again, it's not scalable. Then you become a bottleneck, right?
Yeah, I like to say I disagree, but I approve and move forward, or something like that.
Exactly. It's all about, irreversible or reversible, right? Anything that is reversible, let them, empower them, give them ownership. And they will grow.
I checked research from McKinsey about design index, and it was like many years ago, like 5 or 6 years ago. But number one weakness of all the organizations, the management thought that they think that design metrics, it's a weaker part. So they were sure they have top talents. They were sure they have good UX patterns and craft and everything. But almost everybody was saying that I'm not sure we are doing design measurements. We do it correctly. And from my conversations, even like on podcasts and with colleagues and others, everything, that there are a lot of books written about how to measure design. There are a lot of materials and software, but in reality, it's a bit different. Like, and everybody feels that they would want to measure more, but maybe next year they will put it into their OKRs. Not this year.
This is very topical for us right now. We are building KPIs for design, and so this is like, the situation is like product design, UI UX is very tied to product. Like it's again, product managers, product designers, they work in many cases they're one thing, right? And definitely product has all the KPIs in place to measure product adoption, churn, gross processing volume. In our case, like our merchant GPV, LTV of our merchants. So all possible metrics, right? And that's great. And those are definitely product focused. And so the question is, what, as designers, as UX designers, what can we measure that is relevant to us? Because if you type on Google UX metrics, you will most likely get the typical ones that everybody uses, which is NPS, Net Promoter Score, CSAT, SUS, System Usability Scale. So all of those are great, but they are also very broad. We do have NPS as a company, but it's like that. That metric measures a lot of things. Like the overall how likely you will recommend your product and services to your family and friends, right? And you gotta indicate a score. What we need is something that is more focused on the product experience, more user experience aspects. What's the performance of our customer service at helping merchants? Merchants are our users. Okay, that's great, but we need to filter like our job in the specific. What our output, like the quality of our output in the specific. You don't want to have the metric sort of like cluttered by many other components that might sort of like how can I say, like twist the output. You might get like an insane CSAT score because customer service is doing phenomenal, but your experience might still suck, right? So what metric can we use to measure our work? And I think there are a few things. There are like time on tasks. Everything when it comes to apps, web applications, it's all about like interactions. Like the user interacts and get feedback back from the application. So and it's all about like completing tasks. Anything from like posting something on LinkedIn or Instagram, or processing a transaction for us, or for a merchant checking an invoice and sending an invoice so that they can get paid. It's all about tasks, right? So how much time you spend, the shorter, the better. The shorter means that the experience is straightforward, the flow is linear, it's not confusing, right? Error rate, that's another one. Like if you see the whole journey is like you get a lot of errors, meaning that the experience is not clear. The UX is not clear, it's not intuitive. The drop off also, like how many starts a task and they drop it off. That is another indicator that the experience might not be there, again, because it might be confusing. So there are these. Then there are also frameworks that are more sort of like geared toward like the experience aspect of a product. But then it's all also about qualitative. Like for us, what we do, especially if you talk about the light, how do you measure it? Qualitative feedback, they are great because that's when you do user interviews, or you send surveys, or you do focus groups, and you engage in a more like sort of like engaging conversations. You get a lot of qualitative feedback that tells you, okay, our experience is pretty good, or it's not there yet. So these are ways to make, to build metrics for design that are more focused on our work.
I know one more metric is system learnability. When you try to make people learn the system as easy for them as possible, so they're not going to read documentation, but do onboarding themselves and start using the system. And then there is perception of the speed of the system. There was research, then people who use the keyword shortcuts, they were reporting that they are faster in the software, but at the end somebody checked and they were actually spending more time because they had to switch between the keyboard, but they perceive that they spend less time because they feel smart, and it feels easier for them, for their brain, than tapping on a specific button.
Probably the interaction is faster because you don't have to move the mouse and click. So with the keyboard, you are definitely faster. But then, I mean, that doesn't mean that the performance will be faster. You know, the performance can be whatever it is, but the perception is because you're using keyboard shortcut, you are faster in the way you kind of input your commands versus using a mouse.
It's more like a magic because I didn't drag anything. I just clicked on something. I know the secret of the system, and you feel, yeah, it's magic. And then it delights you, and then you feel good about something. It's the time runs faster for you, I guess, in this case. So people report that, system is faster. So sometimes giving some delights, as you mentioned, like about observability, people may feel that system is doing helping them to complete tasks faster.
Yeah.
It even is the same as competitors' system.
And yeah, and a good example of delight is delight is essentially how to go beyond expectations. Like if you know that you gotta load like a page that will take some time because just the nature of the page. Maybe you are completing the sign up, and so the account is being created behind the scenes. So that usually takes a little bit of time. So instead of showing like a spinner, a loader, what can you do to make that loading time, delightful and engaging? Like an example that Google has, it's pretty kind of famous. It's like the dinosaurs, like the little video game you can play, right? So that is delight. That is, it's something that it's totally unexpected. It's very engaging and enjoyable, and you sort of like make users forget that they have to stay there and wait for the account being generated, right? So that is delight. Like Scott Belsky, he's chief strategy officer at Adobe, also founder of Behance. He said, people come to your product for what they expect, but they only rave about what they didn't expect. And delight is sort of like trying to achieve right? Because it's all about that's what people talk about. Like if you have an invoicing system, yes, okay, it can be great. It can have lots of features that solves a lot of problems. But how can you go beyond expectations? That's gonna be that is the layer that they will talk to other friends, and they will recommend it. Is the more we do that, the more we think, and that is very marketing kind of like brand sort of like way of thinking when you have to pitch a product through ads, through marketing strategies and initiatives, campaigns, right? You sort of like train your brain to be very creative, and I feel like we should do the same inside our products.
I would definitely want a dedicated podcast just regarding efficiency of design teams and measuring their delivery rates and speed, because design is not only, there are a lot of memes on the internet about if you want faster, this is a course they can create in a minute. But how to balance speed and the quality of design. When you decided to hire, when you see that, we need more talents, like, do you have any tips and secrets how to hire the people that your team actually will benefit with working together?
So when I go through candidates, the first thing that I look at is their portfolio, and the first thing that I check is their ability to do visual design. Back to that, concept of like it has to be 50-50 UX and UI, right? So if the design skills are not there, I'm not moving forward. If they are, then I definitely start checking like the UX, their UX process, their case studies, and I think that like sometimes, most of the times, designers have these long, infinite case studies with like every possible method that they use. A lot of them also took boot camps, and that's how they teach, which is great. So you need to know like lots of methods, because that will give you sort of like the ability when you work to understand which method is right for what, based on what what kind of finding you need to get, what kind of insights you need to get. But like my suggestion for like portfolios is not to make like these super long, because people would not read them. Is like my way. So my feedback is make like a very streamlined case study with like short paragraphs, show images, and then provide links or like accordions that expands to go more in depth. So you sort of like provide both. You provide that sort of simple, straightforward experience in going through the case study, but also if you want, for those who want, you can go more in depth. So you sort of like you get both, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's going to be, it will give them eventually more chances, because if I believe that if the case study is more streamlined, more focused, like there are more chances that hiring managers will just skim through it. But when they see this like wall of text with a million things, it's just overwhelming. And then show the solution, celebrate the solution by showing big big images of how you solve that problem, how you showing like your mock-ups, not just like little tiny that you don't understand anything. Like you might have like to scroll for 5 minutes to go through all the steps of the research, and then you have 3 mock-ups, very small, tiny, about the solution. But so like you did all that work, then show me how that translated into the solution in a much better way. Sometimes they don't even include the solution. I mean, if you are applying as a UX researcher, that might make sense, or a straight UX designer. But in most cases, you need to kind of show both. And so I need to have these both aspects balanced in the portfolio. And then I go and I read the cover letter. To me, the cover letter makes more like a lot of sense. It's their opportunity to sort of like introduce themselves before even I interview them. So that's their moment to say something unique about the company, about the product, provide some suggestions. Like, don't go flat, don't go like generic, because everybody is doing that. So I need, you need to stand out. We are the product in that sense. So yeah. I always say customize at least one paragraph of the cover letter, and to show something insightful about the company you are applying to. Use their products if it's publicly available. You want to go you want to be nuanced in the way you show that sort of like customized piece. You don't want to be generic. You don't just want to go to their website and copy their slogan and put it there. And okay, cool, you check the website. No, you gotta go deeper, because anything shallow during an interview process equals like you're generic. So it doesn't. Again, I don't get enough confidence. That sort of like I don't have enough to build an opinion on you. So I'm not sure if moving forward. And so take the risk and go like show nuance in all the questions you answers, because that will help me. And sometimes you have to take risks. Sometimes you are not sure, but take that risk, because that will help me gain that confidence that you have expertise, that you went through those challenges already. And so that is super, super useful for the hiring manager to help build like an idea of like, okay, this person is pretty good. I'm excited to work with this person, right?
Yeah. And it also shows your empathy to the user of your portfolio. If you don't understand what he needs, That maybe will be the same with other users, so you don't understand what's actually important.
Definitely.
And I also advise to understand that at the beginning, the hiring managers spend like 20 seconds to qualify you why they want to look, or maybe even like 10 seconds to look into your job, and then they spend 30 seconds looking how to the mistakes and errors to disqualify your portfolio. So it's better to have sometimes less works, but then you are 100% sure there are no obvious mistakes, because sometimes that's a lot of designers.
Absolutely. And another thing is like being very selective of what you put on your portfolio, because a lot of candidates, they go for quantity because they think that quantity shows the experience that they have because they worked on a lot of projects. Absolutely not. You gotta show the best of the best, because that will tell me also that you understand quality. If you treat everything the same and you show me something great, but there's also something that is terrible, that will have, like, the terrible case study will have a heavier weight and will sort of like help me understand that you are not able to understand what's good and what's not good.
Mm-hmm. What about whiteboarding exercises and showing that people understand what they're going to do, their process, their mindset? Do you have any specific questions you like to ask?
So we do whiteboard sessions, and that's our way to sort of assess the UX process portion. And then we do a little bit of like a take-home challenge, a couple of days, and then they have to that's the moment where they have to go very detail-oriented, very, in a they have to craft like a super nice, aesthetically pleasing solution, right? Again, to assess their ability to solve problems, but also their ability to execute high quality solutions. So for whiteboard sessions, usually we have product, like a brief. We give them a brief, which is like a product exercise, and we want to evaluate 3 aspects. So one is their ability to collaborate with us, because usually I'm in there. There's also a colleague of mine, and there's the candidate, right? And obviously during a whiteboard session, you shouldn't be kind of like silent the whole time just doing your stuff, right? It should be like, it should mimic what a real sort of like brainstorming could be, if you worked here. So like, what's the quality of that interaction, the quality of your questions, even like the attitude, that is very important. So we assess that aspect. Another thing is your ability to do creative thinking, because there's a moment where in the whiteboard session when you have to start coming up with solutions, and that's when you have to show your creativity. And you can go crazy also, like, and maybe then you understand, okay, that was a stupid idea because we have this constraint. Reason out loud. That is critical, because it gives me an idea of how you reason, right? Of the level of nuance. Because if you come up with a crazy idea, but then you see that it's not doable, feasible for this and that reasons, then I know that you have a certain level of nuance in the way you think. So that's the second aspect. The third aspect is your ability to essentially follow a process. That's very important. So you have to have a mental framework that will allow you to go from problem to solution in a very ordered, clean way. But here the problem is that sometimes, most of the times, people get stuck in the process. So all they think is about the process, and they don't think about the content. And the content eventually is what matters the most. The process is just to keep yourself on track, so that you don't want to start with, okay, this is the brief. okay, you start maybe asking a couple of questions, and then you're like, all right, we could do this and that, and you jump all the way to solutions, right? That feels a little bit jarring.
I really love talking with you because your level of energy at the end is even higher than at the beginning of the podcast, and usually it's not like that.
I get excited. I love this job, and so I get excited. I would keep talking forever.
How do you explain to your mom what are you doing for a living?
Now she got into Facebook, and so I'm like, okay, I'm designing things like Facebook.
What is your favorite product in a similar niche to yours that gave you the best experience and is the inspiration for you to build similar stuff?
There's this a company called Mercury. They're a fintech, and their product, like the experience of their product is great. Like the user experience feel very kind of well put together. Square is, I mean, that's like one of our direct competitors. What I like from Square is their ability to simplify complexity. Their products, the way they lay out their UIs and all their products is they feel simpler. They feel simple and pretty straightforward. So that is admirable. And I think Airbnb is a great example of a company that is focused, like is definitely investing a lot in the user experience, in the product experience, and in bringing more and more delight.
And the last one, what's the most valuable lesson you learned during your management, leadership, coaching career?
It's the ability to adjust to different personalities. So your leadership style needs to adjust based on who you are managing in that given moment, because you have different personalities, different people. And I told you earlier, some want the guidance, some want the problems, and they go and find and they explore solutions. Then you have introvert, extroverts. You have everything, right? So a leader should be able to sort of adjust to the people that they manage in order to get the best out of them, right? And even like when we were saying like about like, okay, you have introverts, you have to create opportunities for them to perform, which is different from like what an extrovert needs, right? Needs, like, it's easier for them, right, in larger groups, because they are running their show. So it's like understanding. First, you need to understand people. You need to really establish relationships with them, and then so that you can start molding like the right environment around them for them to perform. And you as a manager needs to adjust your leadership style so that it matches who they are, and that will sort of also reinforce the relationship that you establish with them.
Awesome. Thank you, Rodolfo. That was very inspiring conversation, very positive. I really love that we have such design leaders that can be
Thank you very much.
example for others. We learned a lot from you today, discussed how to build successful teams that are caring about delight, not only about utility of the software you're building.
Everything is important.
Yeah, how to build, how to hire such teams, how to make management fun, and also enjoy managing lots of people that still feels that you are a team and not multiple levels of approval process. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Have a great time. Thank you everybody for listening us.